Well, how fabulous was Taylor? I wasn't kidding. Quite inspiring, right? And I think we'll just leave this quote up here because it's kind of fun to have anyway. So the next thing we're doing is a panel called The Art of the Side Hustle. We are all hustlers. You just got to know a little bit more about Taylor's story, but there's some really fun stories with me on stage today. And I think just as we get warmed up here, and even before I introduce my panelists, one of the things I think is interesting about the word hustle is hustle, hustler, a little bit of connotation with that historically, but I think we've really seen a transition in the last 10 years as kind of with the millennial generation, with hustle being a good thing. It's not just on the basketball court, it's how we all make a living. And each and every one of us on this stage right now was originally working for someone or something else, and now works for themselves, following their passion, which is pretty fantastic. So just to get to know everyone, I'm going to start on this end. Why don't you tell us who you are, what you currently do, and what you wanted, well, actually, let's do it like this. Tell us what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were a kid, when you were 5. Let's say when you were 5, and what you do now.
Okay, my name's Abby Albaum. I wanted to be a matzo ball when I was 5 years old. That's what I would tell my parents. I have no idea why. I loved matzo ball soup. But what I am now, I'm a professional hula hooper. I have a company called Hoola Monsters, so I literally hula hoop for a living. I teach kids hula hoop classes. I'm a fire dancer. I run a performance troupe. I do lots of music festivals. I sell handmade hula hoops on Etsy, on my website, at the festivals, at the vending events that I do. And am I forgetting anything? Oh yeah, I also hand make jewelry. So that's what I do.
Did you make those beautiful earrings you have on right now?
I didn't know, but a friend made these. I made this necklace, my bracelets, yeah.
Lovely. Bonus points if you ask Vinny to see his fire hooping videos. They're real, and that's courtesy of Abby, so total legit.
Fire hooping?
Yeah, fire dancing, yeah.
I'm interested.
How are you going to follow up on that, Vincenzo?
I'm not. I'm going to ask you to make me some soup, and that's probably about it. But yeah, what did I want to be? I wanted to be an astronaut.
Who are you, first of all?
Oh, Vincenzo Landino. That's my name. I always wanted to be an astronaut because I love this. I love space. I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. I always thought it was impossible. Like we shouldn't get there. There's no way man should be able to get there. So I thought it was just really cool. And now I am the creative director of 52 Creative, which is my I founded a digital ad agency out of my home. And I was, for me, it was like something I always wanted to do. It was passion. And so I'm working with some major clients, national brands, but I also work with small businesses in my local area, which is Connecticut, Greater New York City.
Awesome.
Very good. I'm Taylor Pearson. I think everyone knew that. When I was 5, I wanted to be a Mongol. I loved Genghis Khan.
Yes.
I was obsessed with the Mongols.
That's the most sophisticated 5-year-old answer ever.
And now I am an author, and I have a publishing business where I do some other stuff behind the books.
Yeah, nice. I'm Savannah. When I was 5, I think I was really torn between wanting to be the president and wanting to be a singer. And I feel like public speaking kind of sits right in the middle of all of that. So ended up kind of on that path as an adult now that I think about it. I currently, so this is fun and a nice way to transition into our content. I founded my first company about 10 years ago, running social media for small businesses, back before it was cool when people thought it was crazy to pay me to run their Facebook page. Now it's obviously a pretty big deal, which is awesome, but I took some time in between and went and worked for some exciting startups. For those of you who were there or here last year, I was working for Shapeways, the largest 3D printing company and marketplace in the world, and I went and worked for a consultancy back in San Francisco, and a week ago I quit my job, and I left, and I'm done, and it feels fucking great. So I'll talk a lot about decision making. That's my chat tomorrow morning is a lot about decision making and trying to inspire you to make the right decisions to put you in the position you want to be in. But I think there is nothing more liberating. I mean, I can tell, like, seriously, I was talking to Taylor last night. I'm so happy. There's just like, I can't describe how nice it is to not be controlled by someone else and something else, and to be putting all of my time exclusively into something that I love, which is the companies and the products and the brands and the people that I represent through my consultancy. But if you saw on the board out there, I'm currently an international woman of mystery, because I don't even really want to lock myself down to anything. So I think since it's so relevant for me this week and hopefully for you at some stage, I know we've all sort of moonlit, side hustled, done our thing before this was our full-time thing. So everybody had a day job. So I would love to actually, let's start with you, Abby, because professional hula hooping is like the coolest job title I think I've ever heard. I would love to know what you were doing and what was the moment?
Sure.
What was the point of no return for you when you were just like, I gotta get out of this and hoop?
So basically, I graduated from University of Florida with a degree in public relations. I started my career in New York City at a global PR firm. So I worked as a public relations practitioner and a marketing manager for 8 years before I went full-time with my business. And honestly, that background and that foundation is what enabled me to be able to do this full-time. I truly believe that. Without that education experience, hands-on opportunity to work in a thriving agency atmosphere, that's what made me understand how to develop the framework for promoting my own brand. So it's not like I woke up one day and I was like, I'm going to be a full-time hula hooper. It didn't work out that way. I was, getting ready for work every day and going to the office and doing a job that I enjoyed, but I wasn't extremely passionate about. And this hippie chick moved into my neighborhood, and she was dressed really fun and funky, and we became friends, and I learned more about her. She was traveling around to music festivals, selling her handcrafted hula hoops, and I was like, what are you talking about? And then I saw her dancing with the hoops, and I was completely inspired. This is not the old school hula hooping where it's jerky movements and the hula hooping of your childhood. This is a performance art. It's beautiful, and I was mesmerized. So she made me a hoop. I started practicing on my own time. It became my stress relief. It was my movement meditation.
Oh, cool.
It was what, honestly, I credit as a way to heal from a history of depression. So there was a lot of amazing things that started to happen. And then just for a year and a half, I just juggled this. I didn't even really think of it as a startup business. People wanted me to make hoops for them. I was just kind of telling my friends about this thing I was excited about. Then I had an opportunity to sell my hoops at a farmer's market. If you guys are familiar with the Saturday morning market in St. Pete, it's the largest farmer's market in the Southeast. We get about 10,000 people through there every Saturday.
Wow.
So that's what really jump-started everything. The market, people started asking for classes. They wanted performances. We had an opportunity to be on America's Got Talent, and I'm like, holy crap, what's happening? So then, so while I was juggling my full-time job as a marketing manager, and I should also say, in the 8 years that I was working in marketing, this particular job I was at was the one that I really enjoyed the most. My boss was amazing. I had a ton of respect for the people that I work for, but it got to the point where I was working through my lunch breaks on my startup business. I was coming home at night and falling asleep with the computer in my lap, building my website and doing all these things, and I was like, got to work one day, I'm like, I can't do this because I have so much respect for this company I work for, I have so much respect for myself and what I think is possible in creating this new business. And I think somebody else needs to be in my position who can really devote the time and energy and passion into doing this job that I previously was super passionate about, and now my passion had been redirected. So I made the decision to leave, which was really tough. I cried. I gave them 2 months' notice. Nobody gives 2 months' notice leaving a job, but I wanted to hire my replacement and make sure they were set up for success. And so I transitioned out, and then my mom's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you have a high-paying job. You don't, you haven't run the numbers and done all the planning that I was supposed to do, but I just really took a leap of faith. Not going to lie, first year and a half was tough. I lost my house. I had some financial challenges. Fast forward 9 years later, and I'm so excited. We just scored a deal with this major company out of the United Kingdom for our kids brand. So we're going to be taking it to the next level. I have a children's DVD out, and so my passion is really working with kids. And I'm finally like, this is the year that I'm breaking free, and all of it's starting to become financially rewarding in the way that I wanted it to be. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Wow, that was like 4 rounds of goosebumps. I didn't get them because it's cold up here. That was just lovely. How cool. Can adults do the kids' DVD?
Yeah, sure, totally. Okay. Yeah.
I'm at that level of hooping myself, probably like age 3.
I have
ability,
adult
age
tutorials
4.
too on my website, totally free. You can learn at home.
Oh, great.
Yeah, or come to class.
Cool. What about you, Vincenzo?
Ooh, it's an interesting story. actually. And
I'm sure we'd all love to hear it.
there's not many people, there's actually not
You have our
there's,
attention.
there's not a ton of people that actually know the full story, so you guys get to hear something different. I graduated college at the age of 21, and then after that, I worked for my family business because I was like, well, what else am I supposed to do? Work for my family business, right? It's a bunch of entrepreneurs. My uncles, my parents, they're all entrepreneurs.
Vincenzo's Italian, also, if you didn't realize.
If you didn't hear that, if you
The
didn't know
family.
that, thanks.
Yeah, dog.
So I did that, and within 3 months, I decided I wanted to work in the family business a little differently. So my uncle's business is, he owns a beauty school, and he owns salons. So I said, well, I want to do this. This is really cool. So I actually have a cosmetology degree. No one knows this, so keep it to yourselves. Don't tell anybody. I'm kidding. I have a cosmetology degree because I said, well, I want to learn the business before I take over or get into anything else into it. So I did that, and I credit working in a salon for about 3 years at the age of 21, between the age of 21 and 24 or 25, for why I wanted to become an entrepreneur today, because I learned a lot about hustling. You have to hustle or else no one gets in your chair. It's not like, all right, you work somewhere and somebody will be there. You have to constantly hustle. You have to constantly talk about your business. You have to constantly talk about what you do well. Even when you don't do it really well, you have to say, that's what I can do. And I'll never forget, like the biggest piece of advice I got was, well, what type of client do you want in your chair? And I said, I don't know, the ones that spend the most money. Because who doesn't want someone that spends the most money? And they said, well, how are you going to do that? And if you don't talk about yourself, if you don't talk about what you can do, no one's going to ever do it. So I always said, I'm the best colorist, I'm the best this, and people would come to my chair and spend money. And obviously, I got better along the way. And it was, again, after 3 years, it wasn't a passion of mine, but I learned so much about business. And then over the next 4 years, I worked for an agency, a marketing agency, and it was a very traditional marketing agency. It was very boring. There was no innovation, no growth potential. It was very much to your point, like it was just, you went through the motions. It was paid well. It was a paycheck. And I always had questions from friends, family, people I would meet. Hey, can you help me with my business? And of course, you start giving away advice for free for a while, but then you're like, wait a minute, why didn't I charge for my time? Why didn't I charge for this? Why don't I offer these services? And so it quickly became not a 2-month, for me, it was like a 1.5 year notice, because they knew I was checking out over time. And I was always taking clients at night, taking clients on the weekends. And then finally, I decided to just open up shop about a 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years.
Was your employer aware that entire time that you were
Yeah,
hustling?
I was also, I was very transparent to the point, because it could have been conflicting. So I was very, very transparent with, hey, listen, do you mind if I'm coaching people? And that was totally okay. Now, if I was taking on rival clients, I probably would have gotten the boot a long time before that. So for me, it was transparency. I was honest about the hustle, but it was a hustle, and I could not allow it to affect my job. That was the biggest thing for me, because if I came in after coaching, consulting all night or on the weekends, and I wasn't up to par with what was required of me, I was not going to be there for a while. And that was scary for me. That was really scary. I was like, well, what if I don't have a paycheck? So that was really the biggest driving factor, was having that income, having that paycheck. I had just bought a house, I had a dog, I had, what am I going to do? But you realize quickly that your passions are more important than just that paycheck.
Yeah. You also realize that paycheck can be a lot bigger check
Absolutely.
than it is every single week, Yeah. What about you, Sweets?
So I come from a very strong math and science family, and I realized after I barely scraped by in algebra that gene did not get passed down to me. And so I started looking for other options, and I defaulted to, well, I want a good job, so I'm not good at math and science, so that basically leaves law school. So that was
yeah.
That was kind of the track I was on. And so I was in college, I studied history, which obviously a very valuable degree. And my dad said, well, you have to have a marketable skill. If you're going to go to college, you have to graduate with something helpful. So I started studying Spanish and realized very quickly the best way to actually learn Spanish was to go somewhere. So I went to Argentina. I spent 6 months in Argentina learning Spanish. but also like very opened my perspective to a broader set of life possibilities. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. I went to college in Birmingham, Alabama. I would call everyone I grew up with very kind of traditional. And I didn't like the notion of running your own business and the internet were kind of these like weird, I mean, they were just like kind of fringe things that some people did, but not me. I came back from that and said, okay, I don't want to go to law school. I got to figure something out. So I became certified as a medical interpreter, taking night classes in school. I graduated. I was a freelance medical interpreter for 6 months. I met a guy through that who had an English school in Sao Paulo, Brazil. So I moved to Sao Paulo and taught English for 6 months and realized pretty quickly that English teaching is not, it doesn't really go anywhere. And so I would teach in the mornings from about 6 to 9, and then in the afternoons from maybe like 4 to 8. So I had this big chunk in the middle of the day where I didn't have anything to do. And so I started teaching myself search engine optimization and WordPress websites, and started building websites. I was selling advertising on kitchen furniture. That was like my first little business. I sold.
Can I ask how you selected that as your vertical?
I was looking, typically industries that are cater to older women are less competitive because there aren't older women entrepreneurs. And so it was very uncompetitive. And
there will be in a few years when
be.
I get older.
So I was just, it was a kind of like a pure arbitrage thing.
It's awesome.
But that crashed and burned pretty quickly. I was doing some kind of shady marketing stuff at the time. But I had some chops at this point. I got a job at a marketing agency, and I got kicked out of Brazil for overstaying my visa. I got a job at a marketing agency in Memphis. Lived with my parents for about a year, saved up money, worked at the marketing agency, and then was listening to this podcast where these guys were talking about their internet business that they ran while they traveled, and they said, we need someone to come and manage the online marketing. And so I said, hey, I work at a marketing agency. I've been doing this stuff for 2 years. And so I got what I would call now an apprenticeship, which is basically we cut the deal, whereas I'm going to come work for you for an agreed upon period of time. I said, I'll be there for at least 2 years. And I'm going to work very hard to grow your business, but like you got to teach me the tricks. Like you got to teach me how you do this stuff. And so I think that's sort of a side hustle, or sort of an alternative to side hustle, which is can you find a way to make your full-time thing? And I talked about working at marketing agencies. That's like, I think that's very common. Can you find a way to make your full-time thing where it's actually not only paying the bills, but it's also teaching you a skill set that you can use when you're doing your own thing? And so that was what I did for 2 years. And when it was time to leave, they actually had me on their podcast, and we talked about how much I grew their business and said my consultancy is now open. And
Wow, that's cool.
that was what launched the business.
Woo,
Yeah.
that's a fun one too.
Yeah.
Wow, well I feel like these were all actually really endearing stories and wonderful, like everybody loved their bosses. Just to counterpoint that, I think that I know, so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, but also with a lot of I work with a lot of side hustlers. Side hustlers are often my clients, actually, which is kind of ironic. And the fear and the hinge and the secrecy that surrounds that break, or that can I be doing stuff on the side, like first of all, if you're more passionate about all that stuff on the side, you have to be doing it. I wouldn't say that's a choice. If there's something that you think you want to be doing, or you can add value to people's lives right now and monetize that for your own benefit, why wouldn't you? It's silly not to. You should be obviously transparent and not shady, but we've all done our sketchy things to make money on the internet from time to time. I'm not going to say that I'm above that, but I would say, and just as more of a point of reference for the audience to know, I'm the opposite. I have not been as, I wouldn't say, makes me sound like I'm hiding something. I haven't been as open about the fact that I was hustling on the side with all of my employers. I started my first company because I knew no one was going to hire me. Finished college in December of 2008, literally on the day that 800,000 people were laid off, and it was the front page of the New York Times. I thought, okay, nobody's going to give me a job. I should probably make one. And then went to work for other companies, and in this last transition, I mean, for me leaving my job, I knew I was going to leave for probably about 3 to 6 months. But I did not indicate I was leaving until I knew I had hit the point of no return, which for me was I could not wake up and go into the office and feel genuine anymore. And I think we've all had these feelings at jobs where your just heart is not in it. And I think for me, that was when, and out of respect, kind of as you alluded to, it was time to go. And it was kind of funny because I had been on vacation in Italy. I felt happiness for the first time in a year, and which who doesn't in Tuscany, and came back and literally was like, it was so clear on a run, I have to quit my job and I have to quit it right now. I cannot continue going on. I'm not happy, I'm faking it. I felt like I was faking it. Nobody wants to fake anything. And going in and leaving, it was such an amazing and transformative experience because the woman who I was working for definitely understood that I was entrepreneurial, and she knew that I had, I might travel around the world speaking and do a bunch of other stuff. But I don't think she realized I was that close to walking out the door. And instead of being upset, she became my first client. And I signed my employer as my first client literally that day. So you'd be surprised what you can do when you've shown that you can create value and somebody wants to keep you on, but you want to change the terms of that. I mean, she literally went from, she's now paying me double for essentially the same thing as my first client. And it's amazing because it's like that fear of the paycheck. You don't know what's going to happen. I never could have assumed that my boss was going to be my first client. But when you flip that switch and you're nice about it, I was like, whoa, okay. Well, everything just got a lot more comfortable, and I get to do this how I want to do it. So listen to our stories and know that it's okay if it takes you 6 months or 4 years or 10 years to take the leap. It's not about when you take it, but it's about knowing there is no other way. There will be a moment in your heart when you know this is it. I just can't work for anyone else. I'm actually really curious, how many people in the audience run their own business? Oh, hell yeah. Loving it. And how many, that's probably why you can be here today. And how many people kind of wish they ran their own business or kind of have a little bit of a hustle they're thinking about, on the fringe? Oh, yeah. Okay, so okay, good. So we're relevant to everybody here. This is great. What do you think is so I'm curious for all of you, what is so we kind of, I think the scariest moment is actually the quit. I don't know if it was for you guys. I think that actual break, I
had a scarier one.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay. So I guess it was about 2 years into my business, I mentioned America's Got Talent because people are familiar with it. They recruited us hardcore. I don't know if you guys know this. With reality TV, it's not like the lines that you see wrapped around the building where everybody's like dying to get on the shows. They were calling us and calling us and calling us and calling us, and I had to have a real serious discussion with my performance troupe. Do we want to do this? Because there were pros and cons. I've heard mixed things about reality TV. We decided to do it. When it was all said and done, it was a 3-month process. We went to Orlando. We were in front of the judges. We did the whole thing. We ended up getting booed off the stage. That had never happened in my entire, up until that point, we had never had any kind of negative feedback whatsoever. Nobody dropped a hoop. Nobody screwed up the routine.
Fuck that audience. Sorry.
The reality TV show thing it's quite interesting because a lot of it is predetermined, a lot of it's coached, and it was shocking for us. Like the stage actually vibrated when the buzzers went off too. We couldn't hear our music. There were a lot of logistics that the viewer would never know went down that actually happened. So I was pretty pissed off about the whole thing because they made it seem like we were going to be the next stars of the whole season. It was 30 seconds, no harm, no foul, and 3 months went by before it ever actually aired. During that 3 months, I was like, should I throw in the towel? Are we going to be embarrassed on national TV? Maybe I should just go back to marketing. I had all of these thoughts that okay, maybe this isn't meant to be. Maybe I need to just quit right now and go back to what I know. So that was something I struggled with for about a week, and I was like, screw this. I'm going to go harder. I'm going to go bigger. I'm going to make this so much better than ever before. I think I mentioned I had built my own website. I'm not a web developer. I had no idea what I was doing. So I, bit the bullet. I hired a professional web development company. This website was better than I ever could have imagined. So by the time this thing actually aired, it ended up being, I actually had some words with Pierce Morgan too, and that aired on TV. But it ended up being, he said, what did he say? I think what you do is silly. I was like, I think your comments are silly. I mean, it's not like it was a big
Heyo.
deal, but it was kind of funny. I mean, looking back and reflecting on it, I mean, I was like all pissed off walking off stage, pushing Nick Cannon out of the way, ripping my fake eyelashes off. But but by the time this thing actually aired, it was nothing. Like, it didn't hurt my business at all. If anything, it helped my business because all the comments on our YouTube clip were like, I don't understand why they got booed off the stage. This makes no sense. Like, the hooping community, there is a community of people who do what I do, came out in full force to support us. And it actually, when it was all said and done, motivated me to take my business to the next level. Because of the challenge, I was encouraged to work harder, go bigger, and then what was really amazing is all these other opportunities came out of it. So the exposure, I was getting calls from like Shark Tank and all these other places that wanted to work with us, and also booked a gig with the Rays. So we performed in front of like however many people fit in the Tropicana Field Stadium, but we got standing ovation there, and like all these amazing things came of it. So I don't, challenges can knock you down or they can inspire you to go bigger. It's not like everything's been sunshine and roses since I started this company, but I will say every challenge is an opportunity to either take it to the next level and surprise yourself with what's possible or quit. Quitting's not an option, though.